The city was already awake before the sun fully rose. Cars moved slowly through narrow roads, horns mixed with voices, and shopkeepers lifted metal shutters with tired hands. People walked fast, eyes fixed ahead, each one carrying their own worries. In the middle of all this noise and movement, a small girl stood near the edge of the sidewalk. Most people did not notice her, and those who did quickly looked away. She was thin, wearing clothes that were once bright but now looked old and faded. Her hair was tied loosely, messy from sleeping outside. Dust clung to her feet, and her stomach felt empty, the kind of empty that made her feel weak and dizzy. She had not eaten properly since the day before, maybe even longer. Time felt strange when hunger stayed all the time. The girl had learned early that asking for help was never easy. Many people ignored her. Some shouted at her. Others looked at her with pity, but kept walking. Still, hunger pushed her forward. She watched people closely, trying to guess who might listen and who would not. She did not ask everyone. She chose carefully, because rejection hurt almost as much as hunger. A few steps away, a black car stopped near a large building. It was clean and shiny, standing out from everything else around it. The door opened, and a man stepped out. His clothes were neat and expensive, his shoes polished. He carried himself with quiet confidence, the kind that came from years of success. People nearby recognized him and whispered softly. Some straightened their posture. Others took out their phones, hoping to catch a moment. The man was known as someone very rich. He owned businesses, buildings, and things most people only saw in pictures. His life was filled with meetings, numbers, and plans. He was always in a hurry, always thinking about the next deal. That morning was no different. He glanced at his watch, already running late. The girl noticed him the moment he stepped out of the car. She had seen many rich people before, but something about him made her pause. Maybe it was the way he stood quietly, not shouting or showing off. Or maybe it was simply because he looked like someone who had more than enough. Her stomach tightened. She felt fear and hope at the same time. She stood there for a few seconds, fighting with herself. Her hands trembled slightly. Asking for food felt harder than asking for money. Food meant admitting real hunger, real need. Money could be anything. Food was honest. As the man started walking toward the building entrance, the girl took a small step forward, then another. Her heart beat fast. Her voice felt stuck in her throat. People around them kept moving. Unaware that something small but important was about to happen, she finally spoke. Her voice soft but clear enough to be heard. She did not shout. She did not cry. She simply said a few words. "Sir, can you help me with some food?" The words hung in the air for a moment. The man stopped walking. People nearby slowed down. A few turned their heads. Some expected him to wave her away or drop a note into her hand without stopping. That was what usually happened. The girl prepared herself for that familiar feeling of disappointment. But instead of walking past her, the man turned around. He looked at the girl carefully, not quickly, not with anger. His eyes moved from her face to her thin arms and worn clothes. He noticed the way she stood, trying to look strong even though she was clearly tired. For a moment, he said nothing. The girl lowered her eyes, afraid she had done something wrong. Silence often meant trouble. "Are you hungry?" He asked the question surprised her. People rarely asked questions. They usually decided everything without listening. She nodded slowly. "Yes, sir," she said. "Very hungry."
Ah.
The man looked around. He noticed the crowd, the busy street, the people watching from a distance. He felt something uncomfortable in his chest. He had passed streets like this many times, but today felt different. Maybe it was the girl's voice. Maybe it was the way she asked for food, not money. "When did you last eat?" he asked. The girl thought for a moment. "Yesterday morning, I think." Her answer was quiet, almost embarrassed. The man frowned slightly, not in anger, but in concern. He glanced at his watch again, then looked back at her. Something inside him shifted. Meetings suddenly felt less important. "Come with me," he said. The girl froze. She did not move right away. Life on the street had taught her to be careful. Not every offer was safe. She looked at him, unsure. "I will buy you food," he added, as if reading her thoughts. She hesitated, then nodded. Slowly, she followed him. They walked toward a small restaurant just across the street. It was not a fancy place, but it was clean and warm. The smell of fresh bread and cooked food filled the air. The girl swallowed hard. Her stomach growled loudly, and she felt her face heat up with shame. The man noticed, but did not say anything. He held the door open for her and gestured for her to enter first. People outside stared in disbelief. Some whispered. Others raised their phones. This was not a scene they saw every day. Inside, the restaurant was quiet. A few customers sat at tables, sipping tea or eating breakfast. When they saw the man enter with the street girl, conversations stopped. The owner quickly came forward, nervous but respectful. "Please," the man said calmly, "bring her a full meal. Whatever she wants." The girl looked at the menu but did not understand most of it. The man gently helped her choose simple food: bread, rice, vegetables, a glass of milk. When the food arrived, she stared at it for a moment, almost afraid to touch it. It looked too good to be real. Then, slowly, she began to eat. At first, she ate very fast, then slowed down as she realized the food was not going to disappear. The man sat across from her. He did not check his phone. He did not rush her. He simply watched, quietly as she ate. Color slowly returned to her face. Her shoulders relaxed. For the first time that day, she felt safe. Outside the restaurant, people gathered. Some felt emotional. Some felt ashamed. Others felt inspired. A simple question for food had turned into a moment that made everyone pause and think. The girl did not know it yet, but this was the moment her life began to change. And the man did not know it either, but this small request would soon change his life as well. The city continued to move outside, loud and busy. But inside that small restaurant, time seemed to slow down. Two strangers sat across from each other, connected not by money or status, but by hunger, kindness, and a choice that mattered. The restaurant was warm, and the smells of fresh bread, vegetables, and milk filled the air. The girl ate slowly at first, her hand shaking slightly as she picked up the food. Hunger made every bite taste like magic, but she was also careful, not wanting to seem greedy. She remembered being told on the street that eating too fast could be dangerous, that sometimes people would take the little you had, but this man had told her to eat. He had said it kindly, with no judgment. He sat across from her, watching her quietly. He did not interrupt or rush her. There was a calmness in his presence that made the girl feel safe for the first time in a long while. She could feel that he really wanted to help, not for show, but because he cared. It was a strange feeling, something she rarely experienced. On the streets, people only passed by, sometimes with a glance. But no one really stopped to care as she ate. She began to relax. Her shoulders loosened, and her eyes looked up at him a few times. The man smiled softly whenever she looked at him. He wanted her to feel comfortable, to know that it was okay to ask for help. For the girl, that simple smile was a small miracle. It was proof that kindness existed, even in a city where most people were too busy to notice anyone else. The man gently asked her, "Where are your parents?" The girl paused. She was used to people asking questions, but rarely waiting for the answer. Some people shouted the questions, not listening to the answers. Some people laughed at her. She swallowed her food and said quietly, "I don't have them. They passed away." The words hung in the air. The man's eyes softened. He understood loss, even if it had been different in his life. He did not pity her, but he felt a deep empathy. He nodded and said, "I'm sorry. That must be very hard." She nodded too, her eyes filling with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. She was not used to people speaking to her like a human being, not like she was invisible. This man, though rich and important, had stopped everything to talk to her, to listen. The girl had never experienced this before. The tears were not just sadness, they were relief. He asked more questions, slowly, carefully. "Do you have somewhere to sleep tonight?" The girl shook her head. "No. I sleep wherever I can. Sometimes in the market, sometimes near the river." It depends. He listened without interrupting. He wanted her to feel heard, to know that her life mattered, even if it had been ignored for so long. He saw the fear in her eyes, the worry about the night ahead. And in that moment, he made a quiet decision in his mind. This was not going to be just about food. This was going to be about helping her find safety and dignity. As the girl finished her meal, he ordered her a small dessert, a piece of cake and some fruit. She hesitated, feeling undeserving, but he encouraged her. Eat. You deserve it. She took a small bite, and her eyes lit up. The sweetness made her forget hunger for a moment. The man watched her, smiling softly. He had never done something like this before. He had given money before, but he had never really connected with someone like this. It was different. It was personal. After she finished, he asked the owner of the restaurant to wrap some food for her to take away. Take it with you. You might be hungry later, he said. The girl accepted it carefully, holding the small bag close to her chest. She felt a strange mix of emotions: gratitude, disbelief, and hope. People rarely offered help without asking for something in return, but he had not. It was pure kindness. As they stepped outside, the city seemed even louder. Cars honked, people shouted, and the streets bustled with life. Yet, for a moment, the girl felt calm. She looked up at the man and whispered, "Thank you." He nodded. "You're welcome. But I want to help more than this. Do you have somewhere safe to go tonight?" She shook her head again. "No, I sleep on the streets. Sometimes in abandoned buildings, sometimes in the park. It's not safe, but I have no choice." He frowned slightly, thinking he wanted to do more. He could not just leave her on the street after seeing her hunger, her fear, her exhaustion. He had the means to help her, and for some reason, he felt he should. Something about this encounter had touched him deeply. "Would you like to come with me?" he asked carefully. "I can take you somewhere safe tonight." The girl hesitated. Fear and caution warred with hunger and hope. People on the street had promised safety before and failed. But something about his voice, his calm and patient tone, made her trust him. Slowly she nodded. He guided her to his car. It was clean and spacious, smelling faintly of leather and flowers. She had never been in a car like this before. The world outside seemed different from inside the car, warmer and quieter. She looked at him, trying to understand him, but he only smiled reassuringly. They drove through the streets, the city waking up fully now. People rushed past, unaware of the small girl sitting in a luxurious car, safe for the first time in a long while. The man noticed the stares from pedestrians and did not care. He focused on the girl, who looked out the window with wide eyes. Noticing the city from a perspective she had never seen before, he asked her more about her life, gently, without prying. She told him small pieces: how she survived, what she ate when she could find something, and how she slept at night. Each story made him listen more intently. Her resilience impressed him. Her courage amazed him, and her honesty moved him deeply. They arrived at a small shelter, a place run by people who help children on the streets. It was clean, safe, and welcoming. Volunteers greeted them warmly. The girl looked around, amazed. She had never seen a place like this. Beds, clean sheets, warm showers, and smiling people. It was like stepping into another world. The man spoke with the volunteers, making arrangements for her stay. He did not want her to just spend one night there. He wanted her to have access to food, clothes, and safety for as long as she needed. The girl listened quietly, feeling a warmth in her chest that she had not felt for years. She could not believe this was happening. Someone cared enough to change her life. After everything was arranged, the man knelt down to her level again. "You will be safe here," he said softly. "No one will hurt you. You can rest, eat, and get better. And tomorrow, we will see what else can be done." The girl's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of hope, of gratitude. She nodded slowly. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled, stood up, and prepared to leave. She watched him, not wanting this moment to end, but understanding that life was moving forward. As he walked away, she realized that her world had changed in ways she could not yet understand. One small question, one simple act of courage, had brought her hope. Outside, the city continued to rush past. People moved, cars honked, and life went on. Yet, somewhere in that busy world, a small girl had found safety. And a man had discovered that real kindness could touch the heart in ways money never could. For both of them, life had shifted on that ordinary morning, made extraordinary by a simple choice to care. The girl woke up slowly the next morning. She was in a small bed with clean sheets, something she had not experienced in years. The room was quiet and safe, and for a moment, she could not believe it was real. She touched the sheets, the pillow, the blanket, feeling warmth she had almost forgotten existed. She had slept the night without fear, without hunger gnawing at her stomach. And that alone made her heart race with relief. The volunteers at the shelter were kind. They offered her breakfast, fresh and nourishing, and she ate carefully, savoring each bite. They asked her how she was feeling, if she needed anything, and she realized how strange it was to be asked such questions. On the street, people never asked. They assumed you were fine or didn't care. Here, she felt seen, and it filled a space inside her that had been empty for years. She remembered the man from yesterday, the millionaire who had brought her here. His presence lingered in her mind. She could not understand why someone with so much wealth and power would stop to care about her. It was different from other encounters she had had on the street. There was no condescension, no rush, no judgment. Just kindness, and that kind of kindness was rare. Meanwhile, the man had returned to his office, but he could not focus. He went through his emails, meetings, and phone calls, but his mind kept returning to the small girl he had met. Her voice, the way she had asked for food, her eyes, everything replayed in his thoughts. He realized that helping her had given him a sense of purpose that no business deal ever had. It was a feeling he could not ignore. He decided to visit the shelter later that day to check on her. When he arrived, he found the girl outside, playing carefully with a few other children who were also staying at the shelter. She noticed him and waved hesitantly, unsure if she should run or stay. The man smiled warmly and walked toward her slowly, keeping his distance respectful. "Good morning," he said softly. "How are you today?" The girl looked down at her shoes shyly. I am okay," she whispered. He nodded. "That's good. Can we talk for a few minutes?" She nodded, curious and cautious. They walked together to a quiet corner of the shelter, away from the other children. The man wanted to understand her better, not to interrogate her, but to know her as a person. He wanted to see her dreams, her fears, and her hopes, to find ways to help her truly, not just for a moment. "Tell me about your life," he asked gently. "How did you end up on the streets?" The girl took a deep breath. She had told pieces of her story before, but never in full. She spoke slowly, choosing her words. She told him about her parents, how they had died, how she had learned to survive by herself. She spoke about hunger, cold nights, and the loneliness that came with being invisible. She did not hide her fear or sadness. She shared everything she had endured. The man listened quietly. He did not interrupt, but his eyes showed concern, empathy, and sometimes sadness. He realized how strong she was, how much courage it took to survive each day. He felt guilty for all the times he had rushed past the needy without noticing, for all the times he had been too busy to care. Her story was a mirror, reflecting a side of life he had avoided seeing. After she finished, said softly, "You're very brave. I cannot imagine living like you have. I am so proud of you for surviving. But you shouldn't have to struggle alone anymore. I want to help you." The girl looked at him, unsure what to say. She had heard promises before, only to have them broken. But something in his voice, in the way he looked at her, made her believe him. It was not about words. It was about sincerity. For the first time, she felt hope that someone truly cared about her future. Over the next few hours, they spoke about practical things. The man wanted to know what she needed most: food, clothes, education, medical care. She had little experience with any of these, so she relied on him to guide the conversation. He suggested options, and she nodded carefully. Realizing that for the first time, she had choices. He decided to arrange medical checkups for her. She had small injuries, mostly from living on the streets, and her body had been worn down by hunger and exhaustion. The doctor at the clinic was kind and thorough. She was given vaccinations, checked for infections, and given vitamins to help rebuild her strength. The man stayed with her, holding her hand during some of the tests, offering reassurance. She felt calm, something she rarely did when facing adults in authority. After the medical checkup, they went shopping. The girl had never experienced shopping like this before. She chose clothes that fit her properly, shoes that were comfortable, and even small things like a backpack and a water bottle. The man smiled as he watched her eyes light up with excitement and surprise. She was learning that life could be gentle and safe, and that joy was something she could experience freely. They returned to the shelter with the new items. She showed the volunteers, who were happy to see her smile and comfortable. The man spoke with the shelter staff, explaining that he wanted her to have access to schooling, a place to stay, and food regularly. The volunteers were grateful and impressed by his dedication. He did not treat her as someone to be saved temporarily. He wanted a lasting change in her life. That evening, the man sat with her once more. He asked about her dreams, about what she wanted for her life. The girl paused, thinking. She had dreams before, but poverty and fear had buried them deep inside. Slowly, she spoke about wanting to read, to write, to learn things that could help her live a better life. She wanted a home where she could feel safe, a future that did not depend on the streets, and maybe even a chance to help other children like her one day. The man listened, inspired by her courage and hope. He realized that her dreams were not far-fetched. They were realistic and worth investing in. He promised her that he would help make them possible. The girl's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of happiness. She had been heard, truly heard, and that made her feel valued and alive. Night came, and the girl lay in her clean bed once more. She thought about the events of the day, the meals, the doctor, the new clothes, the conversation about her dreams. She realized that one small question had changed everything. One simple request for food had opened a door she'd never thought existed. The world seemed bigger now, filled with possibilities instead of fear. Across the city, the man reflected on the day as well. He thought about how one small act of kindness had changed both of their lives. Helping her had reminded him of what truly mattered. Wealth, success, and business deals were temporary. But kindness, compassion, and making a difference in someone's life were lasting. He felt a sense of fulfillment he had never known before. He decided that this was only the beginning. The girl's story had touched him deeply, and he wanted to do more. He began to think of ways he could help other children on the streets, inspired by the courage of a single girl who had dared to ask for food. He realized that the world could be a better place if people like him took small steps to care for the girl. The night was calm and peaceful. She had hope, safety, and someone who believed in her. She had food in her stomach, a bed under her, and a future she could imagine. The city outside continued to rush, but inside her room, she finally felt free. And though she did not know exactly what tomorrow would bring, she knew that she would no longer face the world alone. In the quiet of the night, both of them slept with a sense of change. One small question, one act of courage, had started a ripple that would affect more lives than they could imagine. The girl's story, once filled with struggle and invisibility, was beginning to unfold into something brighter, something filled with hope, and something that proved that even in a world that often looks harsh and uncaring, kindness could be powerful enough to change everything the next morning. The girl woke up with the first sunlight streaming through the window. The warmth felt comforting, almost magical. She stretched her arms, feeling the softness of the bed beneath her. The air smelled fresh, and there was a quietness in the room that made her heart feel at ease. She realized she could breathe without fear, that for the first time in a long while, she felt safe. Volunteers entered to bring breakfast, and the girl noticed that they smiled warmly at her. The kindness she experienced yesterday was not just a one-time thing. Today felt different, as if she belonged somewhere, even just a little. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, aware that her body needed the strength she had lacked for so long. The man arrived at the shelter mid-morning. He had made it a point to check on her personally. Today, he wanted to plan more than just meals or clothes. He wanted to help her think about her future. The girl looked at him with a mix of curiosity and nervousness. She did not know what to expect, but she trusted him. "Good morning," he said softly, kneeling slightly so he could meet her eyes. "How are you feeling today?" The girl paused, then smiled faintly. "I feel good, safe," she said. The word felt strange in her mouth, but it was honest. He nodded, pleased with her answer. "That is good. Today, we will think about what you want to do. Not just today, but for your life. You can have choices now, choices you did not have before." She listened carefully. Choices were foreign to her. On the streets, every day was survival. Decisions were about where to find food, where to sleep, and how to avoid danger. She had never considered what she wanted to be, or where she wanted to go. The idea that she could make decisions for her own future was both exciting and frightening. He asked her gently about school. "Do you want to learn to read and write and go to school?" She nodded quickly, almost eagerly. "Yes, I want to learn. I want to go to school. I want to read books and know things." The man smiled. "Then we will make that happen. You will start school soon, and I will make sure you have everything you need to succeed. Books, supplies, clothing, and someone to help you study if needed." The idea of school, of education, had always seemed distant, almost impossible. Now it was real. Tears formed in her eyes, not from sadness, but from a mixture of hope and disbelief. After breakfast, he took her to a small learning center where children from difficult backgrounds were taught. The teachers were patient and kind, understanding that each child had their own story. The girl felt nervous at first. She had not been in a classroom in her life. The desks, the books, the other children had all felt new and overwhelming. The man stayed with her at first, introducing her to the teacher and helping her feel comfortable. The teacher welcomed her warmly and explained that she would learn step by step, and that she could ask questions anytime. The girl listened attentively, her eyes wide with curiosity. The world of learning felt alive and full of possibility. After the learning center, they went shopping for school supplies. The girl picked out notebooks, pencils, pens, and a small bag for her things. Each item made her feel proud, as if she were stepping into a life she had only imagined in dreams. The man watched her, smiling softly. Her joy was contagious, and he realized that sometimes helping someone discover hope was more powerful than any financial gift he had ever given. On the way back to the shelter, they spoke about small goals. He asked her what she liked to do, what interested her. She talked about stories she had heard, words she had tried to read on signs, and the small things that had caught her attention on the streets. The man listened carefully, realizing that even in her difficult life, she had curiosity, imagination, and resilience. These qualities could help her succeed if nurtured. Back at the shelter, they arranged for her to have regular meals, clothing, and tutoring. Volunteers taught her hygiene and daily routines, making her feel like she was part of a community. She learned to care for herself in ways she never had. And each small accomplishment gave her confidence. The man stayed longer that evening, speaking with her quietly. "You are doing very well," he said. "Remember, it is okay to ask for help. It is okay to take time to learn. You do not have to do everything alone." She nodded, understanding. Asking for help had been difficult her whole life. It had always felt like weakness or shame. But now, she realized that asking for help could open doors, and that people could respond with kindness rather than judgment. That night, she lay in bed. She thought about her life so far. The streets had taught her to survive, to be cautious, to be strong. But now, she realized there was more to life than survival. There was learning, there was safety, and there was hope. She thought about the man who had stopped for her, who had given her food, protection, and a chance. She felt gratitude that was hard to put into words. For the man, the day was equally transformative. He had spent time with her, watched her explore the world of learning, and seen her curiosity and courage. He realized that helping her was not just about giving money or resources. It was about listening, understanding, and supporting her in every way possible. Her story reminded him that wealth and success were empty if they did not touch real lives. He decided that he wanted to do more. He wanted to help other children on the streets, inspired by her bravery and determination. He began to make plans, thinking about ways to reach more children, to provide education, food, and safety. Her courage had sparked a vision in him that went beyond one person. That night, the girl slept with a sense of security she had never known. The bed was warm, the room was safe, and she felt a calmness she had never experienced. She thought about the small steps she had taken that day, learning new things, picking out books, talking about her dreams. Each step felt like a victory. In the quiet of the shelter, the world outside continued as always. Cars honked, people rushed, and life went on. But inside, a small girl had discovered hope, and a man had rediscovered the power of kindness. Their lives, once separate, were now intertwined by one simple question, one act of courage, and one choice to care. The ripple of that choice was just beginning. It would grow in ways neither of them could yet imagine. The girl woke up to another quiet morning at the shelter. Sunlight filtered through the windows, casting soft shadows across the room. She felt a calmness she had never known on the streets. No fear, no hunger, just peace. She got out of bed, washed her face with the clean water provided by the shelter, dressed in the clothes she had chosen herself. Each item was a reminder of how her life had changed. Breakfast was warm and filling, a far cry from the scraps she had survived on for years. She ate slowly, appreciating each bite, aware that this was not just foodette, was safety, stability, and care. Volunteers spoke to her gently, asking about her plans for the day. She felt like part of a community, something she had never felt before. Her heart felt lighter than it had in a long time. The man arrived mid-morning, as he had promised, to check on her. He smiled warmly, kneeling slightly to meet her eyes. "Good morning. How are you feeling today?" "I feel happy," she replied softly. "Safe. That's good," he said. "Today, we will take another step forward. We will plan more for your future." The girl listened carefully, realizing that each day brought new possibilities. Her trust in him had grown. She felt safe enough to share her thoughts and dreams openly. She told him she wanted to continue school, learn as much as possible, and one day help other children like herself. Her words were simple, but her determination shone through. He nodded, impressed by her resilience and clarity. "Then we will make that happen. We will find ways for you to study, learn new skills, and grow stronger every day." The morning was spent discussing practical steps. They spoke about the school she would attend, the subjects she would study, and the supplies she would need. The man took careful notes, making sure everything was arranged. He wanted to ensure that she had the tools, support, and guidance she needed to succeed. It was not just about giving her temporary help. It was about building a lasting foundation for her future. After planning, they visited the school. The girl walked through the halls cautiously, eyes wide with curiosity. The classrooms were filled with children, teachers, and the hum of learning. She felt nervous at first, but was quickly reassured by the teacher, who welcomed her warmly and explained how the classes worked. She realized that education could be exciting, that it could open doors she had never imagined. Throughout the day, she asked questions, listened carefully, even participated in simple exercises. The man stayed nearby, encouraging her quietly. He watched as she began to smile more openly as she interacted with other children and teachers. The sparkle in her eyes was undeniable, a sign of hope and joy that had been absent for so long. After school, they went to a nearby park. The girl had never had the chance to enjoy such spaces before. She ran, laughed, and played, feeling the sunlight on her skin without fear. The man watched her, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. He realized that these moments, small as they seemed, were crucial for her development and happiness. They returned to the shelter in the evening. The girl was tired but content. She took time to organize her new school supplies and clothes, feeling a sense of pride in her belongings. The man sat with her quietly, speaking about the importance of perseverance and patience. He encouraged her to dream big, to believe in herself, and to take life one step at a time. As night fell, the girl lay in her bed, reflecting on her journey. She thought about the streets, about hunger, fear, and loneliness. She remembered the day she had asked a stranger for food, not knowing that her life would change forever. She realized that one brave act had opened the door to safety, education, and hope. She felt gratitude and a quiet determination to make the most of this new life. The man, in his own home, reflected on the transformation he had witnessed. He thought about how a single act of kindness had altered the course of her life and his own. He had been reminded that true wealth was not measured by money or possessions, but by the impact one could have on another life. Her courage and trust had inspired him to consider ways to help more children in need. Over the following weeks, he continued to visit, provide support, and guide her through her new life. Each day she grew stronger, more confident, and more curious about the world. She learned to read and write, explored new subjects, and began to dream beyond survival. The shelter became her home, a place where she could be safe, learn, and grow. The story of the girl and the millionaire began to spread quietly through the city. People who heard about it were moved by the simple act of kindness that had changed a life. They saw that helping others did not require grand gestures or endless resources, just attention, care, and willingness to act. Months later, the girl was thriving. She attended school regularly, made friends, and excelled in her studies. She participated in activities at the shelter and began to inspire other children who had experienced similar struggles. Her laughter, once rare, filled the halls, and her confidence grew daily. The man watched her progress with pride. He knew that his role was to guide, support, and provide opportunities, not to control. He had learned that giving someone a chance, truly believing in them, and nurturing their growth was more impactful than anything money could buy. He had witnessed a transformation that touched his heart in ways he had never imagined. One afternoon, as they walked through the city together, the girl spoke softly. "Thank you for helping me. You've changed my life." The man smiled gently. "No, you changed my life too. You reminded me what really matters. Courage, trust, hope, and kindness. They are more powerful than anything else." She looked up at him, eyes shining. "I want to help others too, like you helped me." He nodded, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. "And you will. One day, you will show others the same kindness that has been shown to you." The girl's journey from the streets to safety, education, and hope had been challenging. But each step had built her strength and character. The millionaire had not only helped her survive, he had helped her thrive. And in doing so, he had discovered a new purpose and understanding of life's true value. Their story became a symbol of hope, showing that even in a world often harsh and uncaring, small acts of kindness could create ripples that changed lives. A street girl asking for food had sparked a journey that touched many hearts, proving that courage, trust, and compassion could make the impossible possible as the city moved around them. Busy and loud, they walked side by side, not just as benefactor and recipient, but as witnesses to the power of human connection. One brave question had opened a door, and through it a new life had begun. Filled with hope, learning, and the promise of a better tomorrow. The girl's laughter, once silenced by hunger and fear, now echoed brightly, a living reminder that even in the darkest corners, light could shine through. Months had passed since the girl first asked for food. Each day brought new experiences, challenges, and small victories. She had grown stronger, healthier, and more confident. The shelter had become her home, a place where she could learn, rest, and play without fear. Her laughter was frequent now, and the sparkle in her eyes showed hope, curiosity, and joy. She had begun to dream bigger than she ever thought possible. The millionaire continued to visit, guiding her and supporting her growth. But over time, their relationship changed subtly. It was no longer just about helping. It had become a true connection built on trust and understanding. He had seen her resilience, courage, and curiosity, and he had begun to learn from her as much as she had learned from him. Their conversations shifted from practical concerns to thoughts about the future. Ideas about education, kindness, and ways to help others. One day they walked together through the city. The streets were alive with the usual noise, people rushing to work or school, cars honking, vendors calling out to sell their goods. But the girl saw the city differently now. She noticed small details she had never seen before: the flowers in a window box, the way sunlight reflected off a shop sign, the laughter of children playing. Her world was opening, layer by layer, and she felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced. "Do you remember the first time we met?" the man asked quietly. She nodded, smiling faintly. "Yes, I was so hungry, and I didn't know if anyone would help me," I remember he said. "And I remember thinking that I wanted to do more than just give you food. I wanted to make sure you had a chance at a better life." She looked up at him, her eyes bright. "You did that. You changed my life," he smiled, but there was a softness in his expression. "No, you changed my life too. You reminded me that wealth is not just about money. It's about how we use what we have to help others." The girl thought about her journey. From the streets, where every day was about survival, to this place where she had choices, safety, and education. It felt almost unreal. She remembered the cold nights, the hunger, the loneliness. And now she could read, write, and dream. She had learned to trust, to hope, and to believe that she could make a difference. In the weeks that followed, the man decided to expand his efforts. Inspired by the girl's courage and determination, he worked with the shelter to create programs for other children like her. They started offering education, meals, and safe housing. Volunteers were trained to provide not only care, but guidance, teaching children skills and values that would help them navigate life with confidence. The girl became a symbol of what was possible, a living example that a single act of kindness could ripple out to touch many lives. She began to help others in small ways. She tutored younger children at the shelter, shared her experiences, and encouraged them to believe in themselves. She found joy in seeing others grow and succeed. Each smile, each small accomplishment of another child, reminded her of her own journey and the kindness that had been shown to her. The man watched her progress with pride. He saw how she was transforming into someone not only strong and intelligent, but compassionate and inspiring. He realized that by helping her, he had sparked a change that went far beyond one life. Her courage, her trust, and her determination were becoming a beacon for others, showing what was possible when someone believes in you. One afternoon, the girl and the man visited a small community center where children from various neighborhoods came to learn and play. The girl shared her story with them in her own words, speaking simply and honestly. She told them how she had been hungry, alone, and invisible, and how one small act of kindness had changed everything. The children listened intently, eyes wide, hearts touched by her courage. After her talk, a few children came up to her, shyly asking questions. She answered patiently, offering encouragement and hope. She realized that her story was powerful not because of the man's wealth or her past suffering, but because it showed that change was possible. Even the smallest act of courage or kindness could have enormous consequences. The man observed from a distance, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. He had started with the intention of helping one child, but he had ended up helping many. And through this process, he had been reminded of the human capacity for resilience, hope, and connection. The girl had taught him that even in the harshest circumstances, people could grow, thrive, and inspire others. Back at the shelter that evening, the girl reflected on her life. She thought about the streets, the hunger, the cold nights, and the loneliness. She thought about the meals, the safety, the education, and the people who had believed in her. She realized that she had been given a rare gift, the chance to live fully, to learn, and to help others. The man sat with her quietly. He did not need to speak. Sometimes, silence was enough. They shared a sense of accomplishment, not just for what had been done, but for what was possible in the future. Together they had begun a journey that would continue to ripple outward, touching lives that neither of them could yet imagine. As the night settled, the city outside continued its constant hum. Cars, people, and voices moved past, unaware of the quiet transformation happening within the shelter. But inside, a girl who had once been invisible was now thriving, learning, and inspiring others. And a man who had thought success was defined by wealth had discovered the true meaning of it through compassion, action, and connection. The girl's story became known in the city, quietly shared by volunteers, teachers, and children she had helped. People were inspired not by her suffering, but by her courage, her determination, and the ripple effect of one simple act of kindness. Some offered help, others volunteered, and many simply carried the lesson in their hearts. Small acts of courage and kindness can change lives in ways we never imagine. Months turned into years, and the girl grew into a confident young woman, excelling in school and continuing to help others. She never forgot where she had come from or the person who had believed in her when no one else did. She carried that lesson forward, shaping her own life and the lives of those around her. And through it all, she remained humble, kind, aware of the power of connection and compassion. The man continued his work, inspired by her journey. He supported programs for children in need, mentored young people, and shared the story of the girl who had changed his understanding of life. Together, they had shown that true wealth was measured not by possessions, but by the lives touched, the hope given, and the courage inspired in the quiet moments. Both the girl and the man reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with a simple question, one small, brave request for food. That question had opened doors, created opportunities, and sparked a ripple that reached far beyond what either of them could have imagined. Their story stood as a testament to the power of human kindness, courage, and the belief that even the smallest act can change the world. And in every child she helped, every life touched, the girl remembered her own journey, carrying forward the promise, the kindness, hope, and courage could always make a difference.